Muy buenas a todos, bienvenidos al canal y a este directo del 9.3, directo de Tribeca, digo de Tribeca. Tribeca es una cerveza aquí, española. Pero bueno, Tribeca Games, 45 minutazos de presentación de juegos indie, gameplays y entrevistas con los desarrolladores que siempre están guays. Al menos en eventos dedicados a indies, ¿vale? Menos importantes y tal, ¿no? Que dediquen su espacio a los creadores, que también mola. Vale, también mola y es muy interesante. Pero bueno. 5 minutitos, casi 6, mejor dicho. Haciendo tiempo. Que yo estoy reventado, ¿vale? Porque básicamente acabo de ver ahora, hace cuestión de 5 o 10 minutos, el Summer Game Fest. Buah. Ya mañana si eso ya lo editaré, ¿vale? Porque es muy largo, ya he colado un montonazo de anuncios. Lo editaré y aparte creo que tengo que arreglar un poquito el audio porque Windows me la ha liado cosa mala con el micrófono. Pero bueno, quiero revisar que ahora esté bien, ¿vale? Pero bueno, por lo menos. Pero bueno, a ver, algo haré. Y si no, pues a muy malas, pues me quedo con la parte interesante y ya subiré las reacciones que también. Pero eso ya de cara a mañana, ¿vale? De cara al sábado, porque también tengo que ver todavía, sí, el de Volver Direct. Que, bueno, es que no veas cómo arranca la cosa, ¿eh? No tenemos E3, pero han cogido todas las conferencias y como si fuera un E3. Tampoco es que me quejen en ese sentido, pero leñe, ya que tienes ese tiempo, pues espaciarlos un poquito más, ¿no? No hace falta que las pongas todas a las tantas de la noche o de 6, 7, 8, 9, a saco. Pero bueno, es igual, no pasa nada. Que por cierto, ay, el Summer Game Fest, ¿eh? Cómo ha arrancado, madre mía. Qué sorpresitas había, porque había sorpresitas. Pero cómo ha terminado, ¿eh? Cómo ha terminado, confirmando lo que venía haciendo Square Enix jugando al despiste. Ese tráiler final de Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, que madre mía. Directo a la nostalgia ha ido eso, directo a la nostalgia. Pero bueno, ya lo veréis seguramente en cuanto lo publique, porque ese pongo reacción sí o sí, seguro. Si tengo tiempo, claro. Porque se vienen más cosas, hoy tenemos este. Mañana no sé si había algo. Ah, sí, coño, el Future Game Show también. Mañana, acordaos el calendario que os lo puse, ¿vale? Mañana Future Game Show, creo que era a las 7, no recuerdo mal. Y luego el domingo tenemos el de Xbox, el otro evento grande de la semana. Que ese sí que estará también en directo, ¿vale? Aprovecho y os lo digo ya. Y bueno, lo dicho, 45 minutitos en plan relax de juegos indie, que algunos están muy bien. Recordemos que el año pasado en Tribeca yo no esperaba nada y soltaron cositas, ¿eh? Soltaron cositas importantes. Pero es un show más light, ¿vale? Eso sí que es cierto, porque es más tranquilo y más dedicado a presentar juegos y a los desarrolladores también. Dos minutos y medio. 2 minutitos. Esto arranca, señores. ¡Oh, Dios!
The city is back and it's exciting.
It's a fantastic film festival that really gets to the soul and the heart of downtown New York filmmaking.
It's about the vibrance of the culture of New York, and we pull it all together.
Bueno, arrancamos con
games, immersive experience.
El evento suyo propio, una presentación del evento de Tribeca, que no es este, es lo que hubo.
There are so many more things that games can be.
Ever since I was a kid, I would play video games 24/7.
Every time I wanted to relax, every time I wanted to step out of the world for a bit.
You know, some people might say, well, go read a book. And I'm like, I don't want to read a book. I want to be in an interactive adventure. I want to feel like I'm part of the story.
I am Julián Cordero and my game is Despelote.
Goodbye Volcano High.
Stray Gods.
A Highland Song.
Chunks of Sinnoh.
Nightscape.
The Expanse.
Welcome.
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 Welcome to Tribeca Games.
A ver.
I must have climbed the hill behind the house 100 times. I know every stone. But after that hill, there's another. And then another again.
Habitación ardiendo ahora mismo.
All that,
entre los focos y tal, y que llevo como 3 horas que no se han apagado todavía. Y no he ventilado.
A Highland Song is a narrative adventure game set in the wilds of the Scottish Highlands. You play as Moira McKinnon, a teenager on her way to the sea for the first time. But to get there, you're going to have to find your way through the wild mountains and the valleys. You'll have to survive the weather, and you'll learn a bit about the stories and the history of the Highlands on the way.
Inkle is an independent game studio based in the UK, and we specialise in narrative games, so we make games in all sorts of genres, but our main focus is on games that tell really strong stories.
Our most famous game is probably 80 Days, an adaptation of Jules Verne's classic novel.
The main hook of 80 Days is that you can go around the
Van a
world
presentar
any way
unos
you
juegos así ya de
like.
entrada.
The way that Highland Song works is extremely similar to 80 Days. You start in one particular point and you can choose all sorts of different routes through the Highlands in order to reach your goal. But it also ends at a single point because you're trying to reach the lighthouse where your Uncle Hamish lives by the sea.
Finding the right gameplay for a game like a Highland Song can be really difficult. Gameplay is usually built around loops and patterns, but good narratives aren't made out of loops. We want to make sure that the character isn't doing anything just for the sake of gameplay, but
es una aventura narrativa.
What the character's doing has to make sense within the narrative.
So the reason that we've essentially created our very first platforming game is that it just makes sense for the character within this scenario to be jumping and scrambling over rocks. And it even has a rhythm action mechanic. So in many ways, it's the most gamey game that we've ever created.
Moira's platforming abilities in a Highland Song are quite realistic. She has a limited amount of time that she can climb. She gets hurt if she falls too far. She can rest to recover her strength. She gets affected by weather and affected by nighttime and affected by cold. A lot of our mechanics are built around the tension between
Hostia, le afecta tanto el cansancio, el frío.
which is all about that. It's about finding little pockets of knowledge,
Está bien, ¿eh?
learning the names of peaks and understanding the history.
Es un juego para
to
explorar.
help you find your way through this world.
At Inkle, we've always loved hand-drawn 2D illustration. We love how expressive it can be, especially for characters. Even when we made 3D games, we still had 2D characters because we loved the overall effect. I grew up in Scotland. When I was a teenager, I went up into the Scottish Highlands with 3 friends and we got lost and we had to stumble through rivers and bogs. It was really quite a chilling, scary experience. My parents are art historians and there was always one painting in particular that they had.
Pues está explicando dónde se inspiró, ¿no? Que era nació en Escocia y cuando era adolescente fue a perderse por ahí, de hecho se perdió. Y bueno, tuvo su mini aventura, ¿no? De exploración y tal. Y a partir de ahí pues salió la idea de... Bueno, suele pasar, ¿no? Con estos juegos indie. Ese momento que te marca y te inspira. Y bueno, el apartado artístico que ya se nota, pues que también les gusta, ¿no? También les mola. Buenas tardes. Deja me gusta. Vale, muchas gracias Alejandro, bienvenido al canal. Si te quieres quedar, disfruta. Lo iré comentando y traduciendo a ver si lo que vaya pillando por aquí. Que hay que apoyar también los juegos indies.
When people play a Highland Song, I really want them to come away with a strong sense of the place, the Highlands themselves. There's this tension in that place between being full of story and history and the marks left behind.
Y gracias por el like, que no se olvide eso.
Ruined farmhouses, or whether that's just the names attached to the various peaks and the stories behind those names, which often go back a very, very long way indeed.
When I first kind of conceived of the game, I tried to forget everything about what games we'd made as a studio before, what games are out there, and I just tried to
pues bienvenido y espero que disfrutes.
What do I want on my Switch for me to play right now? And pretty much a Highland Song, as the way it looks and feels, popped into my head, and I can't be prouder of what we've created.
A Highland Song. Hostia, pues este pinta bastante bien, un jueguecito de tranquis para jugar relajado, para explorar, una aventura narrativa. Con un fuerte toque artístico, como ya se ha podido ver. Pinta muy bien. Y ahora viene cuando meten el copyright.
Co-op is a game studio that's based originally in Montreal, but is now remote and worldwide. It is a cooperative.
Basically, that means that we make all major decisions together. We decide whether we want to work 4 days or 5 days. Spoiler alert, we decided to do 4 days a long time ago.
We present concepts when we are starting to put together things.
Como este juego me suena que ya se vio también hace... Ahora no recuerdo cuándo, pero se vio.
To what you're making because you voted for it, you chose it.
It was really important for us to feel like this was a different space where people actually could be the voices behind the games that we make.
We are the makers of some charming, fun games like Winding Worlds and Nog and the upcoming Goodbye Volcano High.
Goodbye Volcano High is a cinematic visual novel about dinosaurs in their final year of high
exacto, es
school.
una
At the
novela
start of the year,
visual
they find out that a meteor
en el evento de Play 5. Exacto,
And the
¿ves?
game is about
Hola,
asking
bienvenido.
yourself, what would you do if you had
Rey
1 year
Cairo.
left? Who would you be?
Te vi el año pasado en el evento de Play 5, sí, ya se he visto varias veces este.
I vote yes.
I don't think this is a voting type situation.
I mean, it does kind of belong to all of us. Or it was supposed to.
It does. You did a great job.
So, what do you say, Fang?
We chose dinosaurs for Goodbye
Que
Volcano
este juego, bueno,
High
juego de
for
aventuras
a
de
couple of
dinosaurios, ¿no? También narrativa, visual novel, por así decirlo también. Con un fuerte toque musical.
This was kind of like the hot thing to work on was dating sims. And then we were like, hold up. Here's the hook. It's a dating sim with dinosaurs at the end of the world. As soon as you start talking about a meteor, even though the characters are unsure what's going to happen, you know it's going to happen.
And that was really important to us because we wanted to make something that could tap into the anxiety of our current times. And dinosaurs was a really great way to create that metaphor instantly.
As it went on and we became kind of more ambitious and more interested in making what we actually like, we were like, what if it's an anime and we tell a story that isn't necessarily so focused on...
O sea, básicamente están explicando por qué usar dinosaurios y por qué elegir el estilo anime, en este caso.
So high
Bueno,
school
le da un
already feels
toque,
like
le da
it's
un
the end of
toque.
the world to most people, so it wasn't really that hard to hone in on the teen angst. It's really the hope that's tricky to encapsulate.
High school to me is all about that sweet, sweet balance of doom and hope.
Hope for the better future, hope for the dreams we chase and the ambitions we strive for. Those are things that can feel impossible to cling to, especially with something that can't be stopped and feels inevitable, like a giant meteor hitting you.
Hay un vídeo del J, ¿en serio? Que explica cómo los fans sacaron un fanmade del juego antes. Bueno.
So, how do you deal with
Puede
that?
pasar, puede
Starts
pasar.
off very joking. They're kind of making gallows humor jokes.
No hay que subestimar nunca el poder de un fan motivado.
Potential demise of civilization thing. My chosen theme feels off.
What's the theme?
Using this year to, make an impact.
Our characters all have different methods of coping. Some double down on their ambitions, determined to accomplish their dreams before it's too late. Others slow down and decide to savor what time they have left, regardless of what their dreams are.
We can still win Battle of the Bands, asteroid or not.
The player character essentially ends up being the UI, and you end up playing as Fang's inner monologue.
I think this means she's rooting for us?
Como toda aventura narrativa gráfica, por así decirlo, hay un montón de decisiones. Pero me gusta cómo las han integrado, ¿eh? Y como parte de la interfaz, y además ese rollo de mensajitos de teléfono, ¿no? Está curioso, ¿eh? Es un buen detalle.
Separate from the narrative. It is essentially the same as having a scene of dialogue, but you're playing music.
Aquí la parte musical rítmica. Ojo, ¿eh?
Is kind of gearing up for their future as a musician.
Está bien el planteamiento.
And then realizing that they may not have a future anymore. So those two things are kind of clashing in their brain.
Quizás la batería al principio sonaba muy fuerte, pero luego cuando se mezcla todo, la sinergia, me gusta.
I think every person hopes that they get to be near people they love.
Es apretar X. Bueno, se han visto varias cosas. Primero es apretar X, luego parece que juegas con los joysticks y vas alternando. Incluso hay momentos que parece que vas incluso a la vez.
To do the brave thing and love each other and be there for each other, even when it's scary, even when you don't know what's going to happen.
Luego, aparte, la toma de decisiones y la parte narrativa, pues sí, elige diálogo y elige con X. O con el que sea, pero claro. No deja de ser una aventura en plan toma de decisiones y... Más quizá en ese sentido que no la parte de aventura como tal.
Bonjour, je suis Julien.
Bonjour, je suis Thomas.
Nous sommes les cofondateurs de Rundisk et nous sommes ici pour vous parler de Chance of Scénar.
Avec Chant of Scénar, nous avons voulu proposer une aventure originale basée sur le mythe de Babel.
On a essayé de vous plonger dans la peau d'un voyageur qui débarquerait dans
Una aventura basada en el mito de Babel. ¡Ostras! La torre de
Tout au long de son
Babel.
ascension, le joueur va rencontrer 5 peuples différents. Chaque peuple a ses propres coutumes, sa propre histoire et évidemment sa propre langue.
Comme chacun de ces peuples parle des langues
Claro
différentes,
que
ça fait des siècles.
cada zona tiene su propia gente con su propio idioma.
Comprendre les raisons
Claro, la torre de Babel.
et peut-être essayer de rétablir l'harmonie dans la tour. Quand on a compris qu'on voulait travailler sur les langues, on a eu cette idée de s'inspirer de la tour de Babel, parce que c'est un mythe qui est très puissant, qui parle des hommes qui essaient d'atteindre le ciel en construisant une gigantesque tour. Et ça a des
Para quien no conozca el mito de Babel, es básicamente por culpa de esto hay un montón de idiomas en el mundo. ¿Vale? Originalmente había un único idioma, pero ocurrió lo que ocurrió con la torre. Y a partir de ahí, pues la gente empezó a no poder comunicarse entre ellos y de ahí pues salieron los idiomas de la Torre de Babel. Así un poquito mal explicado, pero el mito viene de ahí.
Chant of Scénar est avant tout un jeu d'aventure. Au-delà de l'aspect puzzle, le joueur devra explorer l'environnement, interagir avec différents personnages et participer à des scènes d'action et d'infiltration.
Donc on a eu cette idée de créer un héros qui serait plus un traducteur, un diplomate, un scientifique quelque part, qui soit dans cette démarche de réconciliation. Le personnage lui-même n'est pas un personnage violent, c'est pas un personnage fort, c'est pas un guerrier. Il va s'en sortir, il va trouver les clés autrement que par la violence. C'est important pour nous de montrer ça, puisque quelque part ce qu'on essaie de montrer dans le jeu, ce qu'on essaie de dire dans le jeu, c'est que la violence n'est pas forcément le moyen de tout.
El juego no es violento, o sea, la peña aquí no es violenta, de hecho ya se ve aquí. O sea, aquí el objetivo es traducir y imagino que comunicarse de algún modo y resolver puzzles.
Les inspirations du jeu. On a convoqué le brutalisme, l'architecture mauresque,
La estética es muy chula,
et c'est ce qui nous a permis de créer ce monde un peu plus réel.
Chant of Scénar est une invitation au voyage, à la tolérance et à l'ouverture sur les autres.
D'ordinaire, les langues étrangères sont vues comme un frein. C'est d'ailleurs pour ça qu'on parle de barrière de la langue. Mais dans Chance of Scénar, ce contexte est voué à être dépassé, puisque les langues y sont à la fois l'obstacle et la solution. On espère que vous aurez du plaisir à découvrir la tour, à résoudre ses mystères et à nous aider à réunifier ces peuples.
Et évidemment, nous avons hâte d'avoir vos retours.
No está mal, es interesante, es interesante.
Nightscape is a 2.5D.
Supongo que Annapurna prioriza más el mensaje del juego que el gameplay. Sí, de hecho muchas veces es así. La estética de Europa de los 70 y los 80 está buena. Sí.
Who just loves to look at the night sky.
As Layla, players wield the magical astrolabe, restoring stars back to constellations in order to seek a path home. A key stellar cast member is the Goat Kid constellation. The Goat Kid decides to accompany Layla in her journey.
These days, people do not know much about constellations and the stories behind them, especially Arabic constellations.
They're different from the Western or the Greek constellations. And so we've had a big research task finding out what those constellations mean, what the backstories are, and finding out how we can turn those ideas into gameplay elements.
The importance of the sky is having this sky-ground connection. Having Layla use the constellations' abilities to solve puzzles and help in defeating enemies.
El estilo,
The game being 2.5D,
cómo va formando las
you can
constelaciones
actually walk into the screen.
y
There's
cómo
a lot
interactúa con
there
ellas.
that allow them to make the game very cinematic.
This is a brand new experience for me, building a team from the ground up. We found an amazing level designer in Nabil and a coder in Idris. And very recently we found our technical artist in Zaki, and those three are
Aunque es
the
más
powerhouse of
mitológico
the
de
studio.
dioses.
And
Sí.
I think it's really genuinely amazing that we found those guys who are willing to work with us in Doha. I was very unsure about the amount of talent for making video games in the Middle East.
Pues un poco la estética de Aladdin. Sí, rollo, parece como una aventura, pero con el misticismo de las constelaciones. Está interesante, está interesante. Mira, aquí justamente lo que comentabas de la estética.
Beautiful Middle Eastern melodies to take them in, the maqams, to combine them with harmonies, Western influences as well, that it comes together as a blend.
In my mind, designing sound is a bit like playing with clay, like trying to model this clay, this sound, manipulate, edit, cut. For example, the hook shot is mostly made by a tree branch, the footstep of a scorpion walking, which is a mix of knife and stone. The voice of a scorpion is my voice, actually.
Hay el rim light a tope para que se note que destaque, que es una amenaza, que contrasta con todo, hostia. Eso es parte del diseño y es, ojo, no todo el mundo lo considera y está muy bien,
Being in a country like the Philippines where my hometown had about zero pollution, so looking at the stars was one of my hobbies, which is why Nightscape appealed to me a lot.
There's about 65 million people in the MENA region who play games, and there's a very, very sparse amount of content being developed from within. We want to push that boundary, and we want to create fun and meaningful games with the Middle East in mind, utilizing its culture and rich traditions and history to really inspire ideas for games going forward. And ultimately, build a bridge towards understanding the Middle East better.
Apuntado queda. Me gusta ese, me lo compro. Siempre y cuando no sea tan caro, es muy interesante. Siendo un indie no creo que sea muy caro. A ver, lo normal, ponle 20-30 euros. O dólares, no sé desde dónde me estás viendo. Pero me gustaba mucho, sobre todo cuando juega con los contrastes. O sea, es un juego tranquilito y cuando tienes una amenaza, te la pone ahí súper iluminada con el rim light para que te des cuenta de que está ahí. Y luego, pues, cómo juega con las constelaciones. Me ha gustado, me ha gustado.
Stray Gods is a role-playing musical where you control the song. You play as Grace, a college dropout who's not quite sure what to do with her life.
A woman living in the modern world who encounters the last of the Greek muses.
Calliope?
Who dies in her arms,
Hostias.
passes on her powers, and Grace discovers that the Greek gods are alive and well and hidden in the
¡Hala!
We think that Stray Gods
Lo que empezaba como lo que parecía que iba a ser otra aventura narrativa más, resulta que va de dioses griegos y cosas tochas.
That you can attach to any one of them and have an incredible experience.
Stray Gods is what we call
¿Eres de Argentina? Sí, conozco lo que ocurre en Argentina en Steam. Tengo un amigo que es de Argentina y sí, sé lo que ocurre. Es posible, es posible.
This is a game with branching musical numbers
Y
where
si no, oye,
decisions in the story are
en
made
ofertas
in
cae
musical numbers
también.
that change depending on your choices.
Buen bundles, ojo,
The way that we tackle music is one that people have never seen before.
Boarding multiple branching paths that should link up to each other. There's a lot of considerations to factor in.
La parte musical. Hostia, me acaban de venir recuerdos ahora de...
We got to
de
work
Percy
with
Jackson.
the best, the most talented voice actors in the world.
Porque he visto
the
al...
most talented people on Broadway. Like, what more could you ask for? Really?
Ya me
Being able to work
entendéis.
with some champions like Austin Wintory, David Gator, Tribeca has been nuts.
At the end of the day, it came down to our composer, Austin. He works some kind of dark magic, and you get it all back, and you're like, don't know how you transformed that take into this, but it's absolutely amazing.
You'll have to see. You'll have to see.
We have such incredibly complex, thoughtful characters in this game. Every single character in the game has the potential to be a favorite.
My favorite character is Eros.
I really love Aphrodite.
I think she is beautiful.
Oh, no, that's too hard of a question.
My favorite character is, I think, Orpheus.
My king, Orpheus. He's my favorite. It used to be Hermes, but Orpheus, emo king, love.
Look at me.
Orfeo,
Who do you think
Dios.
I am? I'm saying
Esa peña son los
Medusa.
dioses griegos.
I am the #1 Medusa fan in the office.
I love Medusa, and I love Persephone, and I adore Freddy. But my favorite...
Ahora son
My
cantantes.
favorite character is Freddy.
I'm really going to go against the grain here. My favorite character is Freddy.
Everybody's going to say Freddy, so I thought I'd say someone else as well.
But my favorite... Oh, yeah, I'll say Freddy. But Medusa and Calliope and Persephone. Like, it's really hard. Sorry.
There is a level of belief in the studio in the themes in this game and the stories that it's trying to tell and the people it's trying to involve and the people it's trying to talk to that I haven't seen on a lot of the games that I've worked on in my career.
We've assembled this superstar group of people. It is a Voltron of game development.
Early on, Liam made a conscious effort to make sure that everyone that we hired culturally fit, but
De 15
also
euros para
had a
abajo.
conscious effort to make sure
Sí,
that
es que no suelen ser muy caros. A no ser que
Every single person
salga con
that came
edición
onto this
física, que suele ser un poquito más cara y más cuidada también. Que muchas de las grandes, ¿no? Suelen estar por ahí.
It's just important for us that everyone, one, feels safe enough to share their opinion, and two, diverse enough that many opinions are shared from all sorts of walks of life.
At the end of the day, gaming is about joy, and I really like being reminded that making games can also be about joy.
Hostia, acabo de ver el casting y telita, ¿eh? Me pareció ver a Laura Bailey por ahí y... O sea... Stray Gods. Role-playing musical. Ojo.
The Expanse is an exceptional
Expanse.
intellectual property in that it's huge. And
Y aquí tenemos el juego grandecito.
Of what they are focusing on.
What is so compelling about it is that it works in several different mediums, right? I mean, we begin with the books. And then I think what was so
O sea, The Expanse es un
special about
juego, o sea, entre comillas grandecito por lo del indie, pero... O sea, esto pinta potente.
So what's unique about the way that we tell stories is that we give our players
Claro, además son de Telltale, o sea...
which basically means that their choices shape the overall story, so they're actually living in the story as opposed to just following along with it.
When you're adapting a television property into a video game property, you have to think about what the fan is expecting and when they're coming into. This takes place years before the first season. We're getting to see the world
de la serie.
through Drummer's eyes. She is a belter, somebody who's out in deep space and has grown up there, has never set foot on a planet, so her perspective is really different.
It's hard for me to look at these moons without thinking about the other research colonies exploiting all the resources on them and giving nothing to the belt.
I hoped to portray her, especially at the beginning of the video game, as a little bit more vulnerable and open, and to see the events that cause her to harden.
Just like series, bossing everyone around.
Es un indie, claro, por eso lo de comillas grandecito, ¿vale? Porque esto es un indie que está en medio camino. Casi que es un doble A directamente.
A really awesome character like Drummer deserves to have really interesting situations to be put in that fans have come to expect from the
Y además
show.
es que está basado en una franquicia, es una serie.
But in video game form.
Y de Telltale, pues, hombre.
Like put zero G in the
Aquí hay
game.
presupuesto.
We have to think about it from what's a good interaction.
Y expectativas.
And changing that from what you may have seen in the show slightly to make sure that it's something that you can grok immediately and that feels good on the sticks, but that is also representative of what you see in the show. Those characters have really complex issues that they're facing regularly. And in narrative games, we want to give players these gray areas to really think, is this the answer I wanted to choose, or do I want to choose this answer? And that they both have their upsides and their downsides. And so the Expanse is perfect for that.
Drummer, his suit is punctured and losing pressure. You need to release the vault and patch him now or he could die.
Belay that. That vault has O2, fuel, armaments. We can't afford to lose it.
It was a really interesting challenge to come at the same character in a completely different medium.
Deck 9 is a video game studio. We are known for our narrative, our characters, and our motion capture technology.
It's a completely blank white room. You've got some tape on the floor, maybe a few things made out of wire to show where a door frame might be or something like that, but otherwise it's pure imagination.
I assume you didn't come here to talk about crystals.
We have a new target.
What is it this time, El Dorado? The Fountain of Youth? Let me guess. The Falcon Horde of Venus?
The UNN Urshanabi. Cap believes there's something valuable on board.
Something that we are really excited for people to experience in the Expanse of Telltale series is the emotional performance that we're getting from our actors.
Sí, es raro porque este año se están centrando sobre todo en juegos narrativos. El año pasado era más variado. Leñe, que el año pasado sacaron a Plague Tale 2 aquí, en este evento. Y este año es todo así, en plan chill. O narrativo. Pero oye, mira, también está bien.
Oh, come on. We're equal partners. We pay the crew, the costs, and the overhead.
The rest is 50-50. You and me.
I mean, that's the joy and the beauty of a job like this, is that I get to play.
We're hoping that you form these bonds with these characters and that they are something that you carry with you after you're done playing the game and you're thinking about it later. That, to me, is always a testament of good storytelling is, am I thinking about it long after I experienced the game itself?
Expense. Para pensar, señores. Pues sí. Pues sí, pues sí. A darle al coco con estos juegos. Despelote.
I am Julián Cordero, and I'm the lead developer and programmer in Despelote. Despelote is a game about soccer, and it's a slice-of-life adventure game set in 2001, when Ecuador was really close to qualifying to the World Cup for the first time.
Sí, yo creo que estamos todos de acuerdo en eso. Se han centrado mucho en coger juegos muy rollo así, tranquilitos, de chill.
When I was growing up, I played a lot of soccer. In Ecuador, the culture of soccer is very big, and if you're a boy and you're not playing soccer, it's like hard to make friends.
Quitando el de The Spanx, porque bueno, mira. Pero no deja de ser también una aventura narrativa.
But then when I moved
Más
to
o
the
menos.
US, I wasn't really watching or
Con un poquito más de
soccer
gameplay,
for a
quizás.
few years. That sort of made me like take a step back from it. I sort of like realized this, and I was like, oh, like this had such a big role in my life. I wanted to make this game to sort of like figure out what it was that was really interesting about soccer growing up. When I started making the game, the first thing I focused on was this like relationship with the ball, and like making the ball like this physical object that you're kicking
Pues sí,
around.
es curioso.
More than like creating like a soccer match, I knew that I wanted to just like your relationship with the ball and like how that sort of then relates to your environment. Immediately was thinking, okay, what should it look like? And there was this artist and musician, Sebastián. I really liked his work.
My name is Sebastián Balbuena, and I am in charge of the art in Despelote. That includes 2D animation, 3D modeling, and also the music. This is actually the first video game I have ever worked in.
I knew the game was going to be in 3D because I wanted the game to be like feel very physical and this like the physical connection
Cierto,
with the ball.
interesante que sea de
We
Ecuador.
wanted to
Pues
find
sí.
a graphic style that could communicate emotions, and we found that the 2D hand-drawn animation was the best way to do that.
We developed like the art style sort of around like his previous work, and his style sort of feels very nostalgic to us to have these like backgrounds with this like very grainy aesthetic. That was just very important to have that dynamic. The background being so noisy, the characters being so like hand drawn and like.
Acabas de hacer la pose de Wi-Fi Train.
As soon as like I was like, okay, well, what's the
Vale,
setting
es una
for
pose,
this game?
una pose
Like, the
clásica.
only really
Pero
idea
mira,
was like where
detallito, porque además el personaje se le parecía.
which is in Quito. That's where
Además el personaje se
it
parecía.
had to be set. It became really important for us to like capture Quito in a way that was like very true to us. So we're
Quito,
using a lot
ostras.
of pictures, and the buildings are all real buildings.
Some of the voices are
Qué
from people
gracioso.
that we knew.
Han cogido
We wanted
partes
to
reales y las han
have
convertido
the
al escenario.
same feeling that you get when you listen to people's conversation in the street. So that's why we went with the improvisation for the dialogue.
it's all improvised, really. We like approached a lot of friends and family in Ecuador. The parents are played by my own parents, so there's an interesting dynamic happening there as you run around as a kid. The scene we set is it's 2001. Ecuador is just coming out of this big economic crisis, and there's this idea we can qualify to the World Cup, and that's like really exciting. And it's been great because I think it's bringing in a lot of this like sort of communal understanding of the moment. So my parents
Allí también tienen ese se puede.
big soccer people, but the excitement of qualifying to the World Cup was so big that even they were really excited about it.
Oiga, ya está jugando el Ecuador, vamos a ver. Todo el mundo está hablando de que este sí hay chance.
Capturing this moment in time was
Ese
important
momento cuando te apagan la
for my
consola para ver la
generation.
tele.
The first time we qualified to the World Cup, it sort of meant like, oh, Ecuador is a tiny little country, but all of a sudden we
Han captado
were in the
momentos
world
curiosos,
stage, and we were like playing against Italy, and like we were like in the big newspapers, and that felt like a really big thing. Pelota in Spanish means ball, and despelote is sort of a saying that people have. Is like esto está hecho un despelote, is like this is a mess. So it's sort of like a play on words, like ball and like mess. We're growing up with this idea of si se puede, which is what the people chant to the soccer team, which means yeah, we can do it. Si se puede and si se pudo. Like we
Creo que esto no hace falta que lo traduzca, ¿verdad? Está
like that's not something
básicamente de dónde vienen las cosas, el nombre y tal, porque la broma que hacen, los diálogos donde
so
salen.
much, and I think it like really gave a lot of people so much hope. And I think for me, like that being like one of my earliest memories, it sort of made me grow up thinking like, oh yeah, like yes, we can. I hope that people really enjoy just running around in Quito. I think we've built it in a way that is based on a lot of our memories. Instead of like trying to recreate it directly one-to-one, it's more of like a fuzzy memory.
También os digo, no creo que sea la mejor decisión el coger escenarios bicolores con esas tonalidades pastel.
This moment in time in Ecuador was, and how I felt through that time.
O sea, si bien no deja de ser curioso, no acabo de verlo. Yo, personalmente, digo, cosa mía. Thank you for watching. Bueno, pues esto ha sido todo. Ha sido un poquito más corto de lo que pensaba. Dijeron 45 minutos. Ha sido 35 al final. Pero bueno, lo dicho, en la línea ha sido quizás demasiado juego tranquilote. En comparación, por ejemplo, con otros años o el año pasado, también tuvo bastante más ritmo en ese sentido. Pero bueno, vamos a poner esto antes de que salte. Pero bueno, veis, por ejemplo, este juego está interesante. Había cositas interesantes. Dentro de lo cortito, claro, a ver, no es que sea un bombazo de viento, yo me lo esperaba mejor también, os digo, ¿vale? Me esperaba algo mejor también, sobre todo en comparación a los del año pasado, insisto. Pero bueno, cositas interesantes, sí. Este, por ejemplo, de la Torre de Babel, está curioso. Y el de las constelaciones me ha gustado también. Este de aquí. Sí, sí, es eso. Quizás es que el año pasado fueron demasiado top, ¿no? Por así decirlo. Pero bueno, estos eventos indies son un poquito lotería. De todos modos, creo que es mañana, si no recuerdo mal. Tengo la cabeza chunga ahora. Pero aquí. Voy a pararlo aquí. Mañana es el... Todos son 10 en estética. Sí, o sea, mañana es el Future Game Show, si no recuerdo mal. Intentaré traerlo también, ¿vale? Pues si os interesa, pues... Imagino que habrá cosas más interesantes que aquí en el sentido de más variedad y todo eso. Pero bueno, suele ser dentro de los eventos indie, suele ser de los fuertes. El Future Game Show. Le pasa un poquito como a la guerrilla, que también estuvo guay, ¿eh? Por lo menos la primera media hora, después ya. Y sí, todos un 10 en estética. Hombre, sí, del Citadel, vamos a decir, no vamos a poner todos tan... A ver, que cada uno en su estilo, ¿eh? Pero demasiado juego narrativo. Yo quería un poquito más de variedad también. Yo estoy con vosotros en este sentido. ¿No? Esperaba un poquito más de... Ay, dame un juego un poquito más de... Un poco más cañero. Aunque sea. Que los hay también, hay juegos indies que sean cañeros. Pero bueno. Lo dicho, ¿veis? Por ejemplo, la estética, lo que os comentaba. A ver, ¿dónde está el despelote? A ver, que así lo veis. Mira, he pillado justo la pose de la Wi-Fi Trainer. Pero es eso, o sea, yo justamente aquí la estética. A ver, la estética de los personajes está muy currada dentro del simplismo que buscan. Pero ese escenario así, con este estilo, estos shaders y tal, tan bicromáticos con tonos pastel, yo creo que más de uno tendrá problemas aquí para acabar de verlo. El Wholesome Direct no fue ayer por la noche, el Wholesome Direct, o tengo yo mal la fecha. Ahora voy a trastear las fechas que tengo, porque lo tengo aquí apuntado. Lo tengo aquí apuntado ya que estoy por aquí. Y mañana tengo el Future Game Show. Ay, y el Wholesome es verdad, que es mañana. El que fue ayer fue el Day of the Devs. Qué follón de conferencias. Pues sí, mañana el Future Game Show seguramente lo traeré también a las 7 de la tarde. Pues si os interesa, estaré por aquí. Y el otro, Future Play, ese no lo tengo ya apuntado. Ese no lo tengo ya apuntado. Bueno, es igual. Tampoco me da tiempo de verlos todos. Lo dicho, gracias por pasaros, de verdad, muchísimas gracias. Además por el apoyo, que se agradece un montonazo. Eso queda, eso se queda. Y nada, ya sabéis, disfrutad de los juegos, disfrutad de este no E3 que tenemos, de los juegos indie, que vale que esta vez nos hemos llevado un poquito un chascazo, pero posiblemente mañana haya cosas más interesantes también. Y nada, lo dicho, gracias por pasaros y nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo o directo. Chao. Que por cierto, yo me voy a cenar ahora, ¿vale? Porque aquí son las 9 y pico y llevo un tute que pa' qué. Pero nada, nos vemos. Chao.